9mm versus 45. I'm going to weigh in on this a little bit. And I know this has probably been a subject that's been beat to death. And I also know I'm probably not going to change anybody's mind. I'm going to tell you up front, shoot whatever you're proficient with and whatever meets your needs. And you might wonder why that little short-barreled 357 is on the table too. And I'm going to get to that. To understand why I may think one might meet a lot of my needs more than the other, we have to understand what I may use a pistol for, and we also have to understand kind of how I came up. I tend to be in the woods quite a bit. I'm not discounting a handgun's use for personal protection or protection of the home. I'm just saying that my needs dictate that I'm more likely to use my pistol to kill a rattlesnake or a moccasin or a hog or a deer. And when we factor in that, plus the need for personal defense, it's really hard to beat this short-barreled 357 Magnum. That being said, it's also the gold standard for law enforcement, what everybody's trying to make their way back to. And truth of the matter, it serves me very well. That's not saying that I don't like other cartridges. I do. And the way the market is now, used to be you could buy 2 quality revolvers for the price of a quality automatic or semi-automatic pistol. I tend to favor the 45 as a cartridge over the 9mm. It meets more of my needs. Not saying that it meets everybody's, just meets more of mine. The 9mm and comparable bullet weights is about like a 38 special load. And again, I'm not discounting that. It's a great cartridge. Meets 90% of my needs. But it doesn't meet them all. Now, it's very easy to get what we used to term high-capacity magazines for 9mm pistols. I grew up in the Clinton era. They had the 10-round magazine cap for private citizens. The choice was carry 10-in-1 of 9mm or, because most 45s at the time were 1911s, 8-in-1. So we're at 9 versus 11. And to be fair, that's what the cartridges look like. That's 147 grain 9mm, which is a good round. Again, it meets about 90% of my needs. This is Winchester White Box. It expands well out of the Beretta 9mm because it has a 5-inch barrel. On the other side is the 45 ACP. That's a 230 grain bullet. A lot of people now have gravitated back to the 124 grain bullet in the 9mm as opposed to 115 grain hollow points. It's interesting. That's what the Germans had, was this little kind of pointy looking bullet for their Lugers and Walthers, P38s. So those were our options. 11 small bullets versus 9 big bullets. I know people have tried to sell sizzle on the steak and, oh, the bullet technology is so much better now than it used to be. Let me explain something. Yes, we have more available options in 9mm, but the laws of physics have not changed. The 115 grain bullet that everybody wrote off 30 years ago as a miserable failure is still the same bullet, same weight, same velocities that we have today. You can add sizzle to the steak. You can sell it however you want to. That hasn't changed. What has changed is the availability now of heavier bullets for caliber, which is what I prefer in 9mm. Coming up, this also, it may explain some of my bias. The guys I learned from, from the time I was a little boy, and really still learning from them. These were your World War II vets, your Korean War vets, Vietnam vets. Those that favored a semi-automatic favored the 45. Many were very skilled in its use. Again, I'm not trying to change somebody's mind. I know I'm not going to do it. And if the 9mm meets your needs, fine, shoot it. It has some great things going for it. Ammunition cost is cheap. Recoil is fairly mild. And you have some excellent small pistols today chambered in 9mm. Not all of them are high capacity monsters that require somebody to help you carry them around. So we can get a more substantial cartridge in the size of a 380 from yesteryear. And that's an improvement. But we also have to understand that a cartridge that may meet a bunch of people's needs may not meet mine. I have attempted to shoot deer with a 9mm. Not my brightest move. And this was with some of the black talons from years ago. Did not have the desired effect. That ended up with me and an associate having a long tracking job ahead of us. Whereas the bigger, slower moving bullet of the 45 has been a more effective cartridge. If we look at numbers, it's about 6 to 8% less than the 357. So for times when I'm carrying a semi-automatic, I tend to favor the 45. Yes, I know it's big, it's slow, and it's fat. Sometimes that gets the job done. Am I worried about capacity? If I am, I'll carry a high capacity 9mm. I have that option. But for most general uses that I'm going to use a handgun for, I understand that my sidearm is not a submachine gun. Again, if the 9mm meets your needs, shoot it, love it, enjoy it, have fun with it, become as proficient as you can with it. If the 45 is a better choice for you, hey, more power to you. It works better for me. Another interesting thing with the 45, and I found this with my Glocks and my 1911s, is it's one of the few semi-automatic pistols that will cycle snake shot. That may not mean much to a lot of people, but it's a hell of a lot easier for me to use that to kill a rattlesnake or a moccasin or some other kind of poisonous critter that's invaded my camp. So that gives me another option. Do I think that they're as good a choice for me as the 357 Magnum or the 44 Special? Depends on the circumstances. But in a lot of cases, the 45 meets more of my needs. Is it a better or worse cartridge? Depends on if it meets your needs or not. So when we're selecting our cartridges, we want to start out by defining what we want to do. Somebody who's simply interested in a handgun for home protection or concealed carry may have a different set of needs than somebody who uses it as a field gun versus somebody who's in law enforcement versus a target shooter. So we want to define our needs, pick our best choices. Between the 9mm and the 45 is a clear winner for me. It meets more of my needs than the 9mm. Does this mean I'm going to get rid of my 9mm? No. I mentioned low-cost ammunition. When I'm teaching, a lot of times I'm using the 9mm because of that. And because I'm demonstrating the same techniques that can be done with 9mm, 40, 357 SIG, 45, or whatever else you can dream up. 38 Super, 380, whatever. But this is why the 9mm and the 45, why I tend to favor the bigger bullet. The bigger bullet puts bigger holes and penetrates deeper into big hairy critters that may have bad intentions toward me. In an ideal world, we'd have something that would duplicate the 357 Magnum exactly, perfectly, in all bullet weights, and could be loaded into a high-capacity semi-automatic that could be shot for longer ranges. That's kind of my take on it. Agree with me, disagree with me, like it, don't like it. I select stuff based on how well it meets my particular set of needs and what I'm going to do with it. Later on.